Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to Thoughtful Tuesdays. I'm trying a little something different, so hopefully the volume is good, and feel free to give me some feedback if you guys can't see or hear me. So, welcome. I'm going to give a couple minutes, see if some people jump on and say hello, and let me know where you are, and maybe even what made you decide to jump on and say hello today. Just getting a little situated here. I'm going to be sharing some things with you about my routine, things that I hope will help you. Okay, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about yoga. Again, just as a reminder of who I am. You know at this point, most of you, that I am a therapist. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and master certified addictions professional. So I focus on teaching people how to stay sober. I focus on helping people with their mental health, with addictions. And in the past 5 years, I have started doing some of that work through yoga because I'm a big fan of blending science and holistic practices to help people heal in as many ways as they can. So you guys will have to forgive me. I can't really see as much if you post because you're a little bit far away for me. So I see that Jason's on. Hi, Acro Avengers. Nice to see you there. So again, like I was saying, I like to blend science and holistic practices to help people heal. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about yoga, and a little bit, there is, people think of yoga as a more spiritual practice or as an exercise or, as holistic, in the sense that it's a natural practice. There's also a lot of science behind yoga, and they've known this for thousands of years, before we knew a lot of the things that we know now about the brain and about how our brain changes. So just as a reminder, when I talk about the brain model of addiction, remember we've got that two parts. So we've got the lower brain or the limbic system. That's where the addiction lives. That's where the instincts are and the emotional centers of the brain. Just, again, the simplified version. And then the higher brain, so that's the logical part of the brain. That's the executive functioning, where we make decisions, where our personality is, and all that good stuff. So those parts of our brain can be altered when we are using drugs and alcohol, when we are stuck in our depressive symptoms or anxiety, any of those things. We get stuck in survival mode. So, we're not seeing very clearly. The logic kind of goes out the window a little bit. So the idea of some of these practices is to help bring you back into balance. So yoga has an amazing way of doing that by not only moving the mind, but moving the body as well. So, there's that old adage, move a muscle, change a thought. So to talk about that, I was going to share a little bit of my morning routine and what helps me, just some simple exercises, even if you've never done yoga before, even if you feel like you're not in shape or flexible or, whatever the case may be. But before I do that, I want to talk about some of the benefits of yoga. So while it can change the mood, a lot of times when we're in our addiction, there's a depletion of those feel-good chemicals, a depletion of the dopamine, the serotonin, the norepinephrine, and we're in a heightened state of stress. And the same goes for our mental health symptoms. Sorry, it's a little windy. You'll see me keep moving my hair here. And so the purpose of doing these yoga postures can help us with balancing that out, balancing out our emotions, balancing out the feel-good chemicals, literally changing our thoughts, changing our physical postures, changing all of those things can change our brain. So we know now that our brain can be altered based on our experiences. So we've altered it to use drugs and alcohol, or we've altered it based on our behaviors and our anxiety and our depression, whether it's laying in bed or, being paralyzed and not doing anything. We can change that. We can alter that by changing our thinking process, by doing physical movement, by doing yoga, and all of those things. So I could talk about all the philosophies and all the scientific pieces for a long time, but I'm going to try to keep this to 15 minutes or less. So suffice it to say that what happens in yoga is we activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the part of the system that's responsible for the rest and digest. It's the system that is our homeostasis, our normal. Especially in our society, we tend to live in a perpetual state of stress. Maybe low stress, medium stress, sometimes even high stress. And that's in our fight, flight, or freeze system. Remember, that limbic system. So when we're in that state, it's very difficult to regulate. So one of the really cool things about yoga is it can regulate that system. And there's lots of ways that it can do that I will get into as the weeks go on here and there. But for this morning, I wanted to share with you a little bit about my morning routine, my meditation, my yoga, and all the things that I do, and just some simple exercises that you might be able to try. So I'm going to give you a moment to find a comfortable seat. If you'd like to try it with me, you don't have to. You can watch it and then maybe check it out later. But I wanted to give you a moment to think about if you want to do that. So I'm just going to settle and take a deep breath for myself. Sometimes I get to talking too fast. Good. So one of the first things that I do in the morning is, I don't know if you can see, I'm actually out on my porch with my yoga mat. I've got my journal here, my favorite new journal that says Mermaid at Heart. So those of you who know me know I'm a beach girl, and if you watched my Thoughtful Tuesdays a couple weeks ago, I talked about being at the beach and finding shells and that being my happy place. So I have my journal, my pen. I also have my handy dandy little set of oils. So these are doTERRA oils, and I can have a whole nother talk about that. But the aromatherapy part of these oils can really change the mood, kind of get me prepared. So one of the things that I like to do to start once I sit down is pull out my Balance oil. So Balance is a grounding blend. It has a bunch of different tree scents. It smells a little bit like Christmas trees. So it's got fir and different scents like that smell really good. And it's got frankincense and some things. So I start by taking this and putting a drop or two in my hand. You can dilute it, but for me, I like the full strength. So I will rub my hands together and just take a couple deep breaths. So if you don't have an oil, then you can just take a couple deep breaths with me. Good 3 breaths to really experience the scent and the feeling of that. So once I do that, I like to put it on my chest, maybe on my shoulders, just to kind of feel it and smell it, and kind of like I'm giving myself a hug and connecting with myself. So from there, I settle, I move flesh out of the way, and then I think about some yoga postures. So I'm going to take a couple more deep breaths, and you're welcome to do that with me, getting nice and long in my spine. And when I do that, I'm using a yogic breath or ujjayi breath. So I close my throat just slightly and I take a nice deep breath in through my nose. And a deep breath out through my nose. Eyes can be open or closed here. So the most important thing is to really lubricate the front body, back body, side body, and the mind. So in doing this, the purpose of yoga in way back when was so that we could sit in meditation for hours and hours. So I do that before my meditation. I don't sit for hours and hours. But the easiest thing to start with is called seated cat-cow. Okay, so the hands are on the knees. I'm nice and long in the spine, so I lengthen up through my spine, broaden through my chest, maybe look up towards the sky for cow pose. And on the exhale, I round my spine, round my shoulders, pressing back for cat pose. Inhaling, lengthening up, looking up. And on the exhale, round the spine, cat pose. Good. Moving back and forth with my breath. I'll just do a few of these. And exhaling, really listening to my body. Good. And then coming back to neutral. One of the next things I like to do is just roll out my wrists a little bit. So I'm going to make a fist with my wrists and just do some circles. You know, I do a lot of typing and texting, just like most of you I'm sure do. So I make sure that I protect and love on my wrists. So you might hear some snap, crackle, pops if you do that. Good. And then I bring my hands to heart center and just stretch out the wrists a little bit more. So my elbows are about at the level of my wrists. I'm actively pressing palms together all the way to the fingertips. And then from here, I point my fingertips towards my knees, or as much as you can get. So wherever your fingers go is where they are, where you can keep the palms pressing together. So this is a very gentle stretch. Pretty much anyone can do this. And you should feel it maybe in your forearms, your wrists, your fingers. My forearms and wrists are pretty tight, so I definitely feel this. And just breathe. Maybe even close your eyes. Trying to stay with the focus, stay with the breath. Good. One more deep inhale. And on the exhale, fingertips come back to center and just roll the wrists 1 or 2 times in both directions just to stretch that out. Good. So these are simple things. You can even do some of this stuff in your bed before you get up. So then the hands come back to the knees. And again, just rolling out the entire body. So this is one of my favorite exercises. It's called Sufi Rolls. I don't know why. Every time I talk about it, I say it makes me think of sushi because it kind of sounds like sushi. But it's Sufi, S-U-F-I. So we're just making little circles around the lower body. So nice and firm in the belly button towards the spine, nice and long. And the torso moves in one piece. So we're making little circles. They might be tiny little circles. To start, you see my head stays in line with the spine. And then I can make those circles bigger. And I can pause and maybe press out to one side, lengthening my side body. That's where I feel it a lot. And then I reverse my circles, going the other direction. Whatever feels good. Even if you feel silly, it still feels good. Good. And maybe pausing on this side, lengthening. And then coming back to center. And just closing my eyes for a moment and centering. Good. And then the hands come back to heart center just to honor. So thumbs are towards the chest. And there's an activation here. Remember, palms are pressing together. So this is one of my other favorite exercises. They're like all my favorites, so I'll probably say that a bunch of times. It's called smile breath. So smile breath is something super simple that you can do. Even just this particular exercise is really amazing for anxiety, for depression, just moving around energy, moving around the body a little bit. So on the inhale, the arms come out like goalposts or cactuses. Chest comes up towards the sky and you look up to whatever degree feels okay with your neck. And on the exhale, hands come to heart center. Allow your head to bow just slightly. And the corners of your mouth come up into a smile. Good. Inhale, open up, chest up. Exhale, bow and smile. So you can keep doing this for a few breaths while I speak to you. So the brain doesn't know any better if you're smiling because you're happy or if it's just a movement of the facial muscles. It's still going to stimulate those parts of the brain. It's going to stimulate those feel-good chemicals and help you get into a better space and better state. So that's a super simple thing that I love doing in the morning. And this literally is all of the routine that I do in the morning before I meditate, before I journal, before I do any of those things. One of the last things that I do, not necessarily in this order, but is to roll out my neck a little bit. So I bring the chin to the chest, nice and long in the spine, so as if there's a string in the back of my head, belly button firm, and just breathe. let gravity does the work here. And know that at any time, if it's a lot for the back, especially in the beginning, to sit up like this, you can sit on top of a block, or you can sit against the wall if that feels good for you. Good. Take an inhale. And on the exhale, right ear comes towards your right shoulder. And then inhale back to center. And left ear to left shoulder. Inhale. And exhale. Moving back and forth with the rhythm of your own breath. Inhaling. And exhaling. And then inhale back to center. And on the exhale, chin floats up to neutral. Good. So this is going to move a lot of the entire body. The lower body is might need a little bit more of attention, and that's something that we can do another time. But I wanted you to experience that and feel what that feels like. So the last thing that I do is a little meditation and intention setting. So for you guys, what I'm going to do is give you a little 1 minute or so meditation that you can do either now or you can do it on your own. Again, you can always sit up against the wall. You can lay down if that's more comfortable for you. Finding a way to do this comfortably where you're willing to try it out and commit to it, even if it's a couple days a week or, every day if you can. Whatever you have to do to get there is wonderful. So start by closing your eyes. I'm going to leave my eyes open for you guys this time, unless they close on their own, which sometimes happens. So take a nice deep breath. Good. And I want you to visualize a warm cup of water. And I want you to imagine as if that warm cup of water, or a waterfall if that works for you, whatever it is that you can visualize, starts from the top of your head and it starts to slowly run down the body. And as it runs down the head and the neck and the shoulders, imagine as if it's gently washing away any thoughts, any feelings, any experiences, sensations that aren't serving you in this moment. Feeling the water running down gently, warmly, all the way down the body, down the arms and the fingers, the chest, the upper back, all the while just taking nice deep breaths in whatever way feels comfortable to you. Spending more time in any places that you like, or drifting off if that feels better for you. Feeling the warmth run down the front of the body, the belly, down the back body, dripping down through the tail into the earth, spreading down the legs, the lower body. And all the way down and out, sinking into the earth, soaking up into whatever soil is below, or whatever surface that needs that energy. And letting go of whatever it is that you don't need. Taking a few deep breaths here. flushing anything that might still be there in whatever capacity makes sense for you in this moment. Maybe setting an intention for the rest of your afternoon, or if you do this in the morning like I do, setting an intention for the day. It can be a word like love, peace, focus, or a phrase, something you can say to yourself. And after you take a few more breaths, you can allow the eyes to gently open. And that would be a time that if you brought your journal out like I did, that you can write down with any thoughts or agenda. Write down anything that came up during this time, anything that you want to put down on paper. The unconscious mind, the true self, has a way of putting out exactly what you need in that moment. And then you could maybe put on an energizing oil. Sometimes I do that. Bergamot is my favorite, which is a citrus blend. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's confidence building, it's energizing, it makes me happy. And then I start my day. So you can do this at any time, but this is just a little glimpse into my routine, into some things that hopefully were helpful to you. And certainly if you have any questions about those, I'm definitely looking for engagement. If you have any feedback on how this was for you guys, I would certainly love to hear it. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful, thoughtful Tuesday, and I will see you again next week.